Good evening, and welcome to a celebration of the Yaak's ancient forest. An evening connecting people from all walks of life to celebrate and raise awareness for one of our last remaining ancient forests. I'm Amy Pearson, the new executive director of the Yaak Valley Forest Council, and I'm so excited to be here. And I'm so glad that you're here for this evening of art and advocacy and community in support of our efforts to stop the proposed black ram timber sale in the Rampike area in Montana's remote Yaak Valley. Thank you for being here. I'd like to give you a brief overview of what you are going to hear tonight. First, you will hear an introduction from our own Ashley South. She is our communications and outreach coordinator, and she grew up here in Troy and the Yaak Valley. She'll be sharing what she loves about this place. Then you'll hear from our own Rick Bass, our board chair and an environmental writer and activist. Next, you'll hear from Marina Saplina, who will share about her recent collaboration with Orion Magazine for the Disabled Forest Guardian Project. She'll be connecting disability and environmental justice while honoring and mourning the recent loss of her disabled friend. Then you'll hear from Buffalo Weavers. This is a collaboration between Strong Buffalo and Ben Weaver, who visited the Yaak this fall and played some music and got some beautiful photography done while they were here also. Lastly, Rick Bass will be doing a live advocacy piece on particular steps that you can take to help support our efforts to stop the black ram sale. Can I say that again? Let's stop the black ram sale. It's a bad idea, and he'll be giving you some pieces on things to do to help us. Also, I want to let you know that you're free to ask questions throughout the course of the event, and you can put those directly into the comment section of whatever platform that you're listening on. And we'll have a team of our panelists to answer any questions that you have at the end of the show tonight. So we hope you enjoy what you hear. We hope that it inspires you to support our efforts to stop the black ram sale. Let's say it together. Stop black ram. Okay, with that, here's Ashley. Thanks.
My name is Ashley South. When I think of the Yaak Forest, I think of roadless, wild spaces, clean water, and a deep connection to the landscape. The flora and fauna are specific to this valley and the northern region of the Rocky Mountains. The sensitive and threatened species that rely on this land need healthy ecosystems to create and sustain a thriving habitat. The Yaak is diversity, made up of dense forests, natural rock openings, waterfalls, fens, so much that is yet to be discovered but is better off left untouched. If we respect this landscape, we will have a place for future generations and species to coexist and thrive. Having a voice followed by bold action, preservation, and true sustainable forest management, we, the people, must protect vital habitats and forested areas like the Yaak Valley. Thank you.
When I think of the Yaak, I think of duality, which is to say mystery. The Yaak is never able to be defined by any one thing, as good a definition of wildness as any. It's a land of fire and yet exuberant rot. The northern forest in the Black Ram region of the Yaak, a site where the U.S. Forest Service is proposing nearly 800 acres of regen harvest, clear-cuts, is an inland rainforest with a glittering chain of alpine swamps, some of which have already been bulldozed. It's a land of salamanders and grizzlies. Of the grizzlies, we may have only 3 mothers with cubs left. The Yaak Valley, then, is our version of Noah's Ark. Public lands owned by we, the people. The ancient forest floor has existed undisturbed for centuries, a scientific treasure house. It's why we're proposing the Black Ram region be managed as a climate refuge, focused on carbon storage and the absorption of CO2, at which old forests excel. In these burning times, we do worry our proposal is far too moderate for the urgency of the situation. As Terry Tempest Williams says, the eyes of the future are looking back at us. We thank you for your support.
When I think about this forest in the Yaak, I think of the bewildering contradictions of this time that we are living in that have made this place so intensely observed and yet completely mysterious. A forest where so many tree bodies are marked with orange lines for cutting, orange lines that want to appear as marks of knowledge, marks that want to claim the body minds underneath them as identified, measured, contained, and knowable. And yet this forest eludes and defies us. This forest certainly eluded me, reminding me how young I am to this land, a land rooted in the ancestors of the Salish and Kootenai people, and not in me, instilling a realization of how humble I must become to open myself to such expansive memory and awe, to attempt to learn the stillness of the stones, to even dream of perceiving a glimmer of the intelligence and aliveness that is awake in you, dear forest. I ask for your permission to gift the memory of Alexandra Zevin to you, my friend who is no longer here with us, who died because our culture does not yet hold your wisdom. Dear ancient forest in the Yaak, we do not yet know how to remember, love, and live like you. And so we need you to endure despite our ignorance and folly, for you to continue so that we may continue. For if we knew how to live like a forest, wouldn't we listen to the ones who send signals of distress? Wouldn't we become connected at root level to one another, feeling our collective skin foundationally interwoven and interdependent? If we knew how to live like a forest, would we respond to a pandemic as if millions of chronically ill or disabled or children or economically precarious people are acceptable losses? Would we behave as if our personal lives don't ripple outwards, the multiplying effects of our personal action waves, both known and always unknowable, and yet always with consequence? What is the personal to a forest anyway? Dear forest, if we knew how to live like you, my friend Alexandra might still be alive. Dear Alexandra, as you now release this form, returning the shape of you to the earth, know that a dream puppet, a disabled forest guardian in an ancient forest, will hold a silk flower for you, will hold the memory, song, and love of you, and will sing on. As Zoe Todd and M.A. Kangiser so wisely put it, let us set aside what we think we know, so that we can imagine ourselves into the future living otherwise. For the forests, for the grizzlies, for the moss, for the wild birds, for the frost, for the silence and the sound, for the Salish and Kootenai living ancestors, for Alexandra, for all the people we have needlessly lost, and for ourselves. May this ancient forest continue. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Strong Buffalo.
I'm Ben Weaver.
Together, we're the Buffalo Weavers.
When I think of the Yaak Forest, I think about when we were out there this fall, walking up the dry Forest Service road, and just hardly any water on any of the foliage or anywhere, and then walking 20 feet into the forest, and there's dewdrops on top of the mushrooms and hanging off the larch needles, and this the incredible community that's living in there, and to be sharing that breath with those trees. They show up in my dreams still.
When I think of it, I don't think of those shaggy ox from Tibet or from gossipy talk. I think of it as this natural space, and that's older than the U.S. of America, and that homeland of Kootenai and Salish people, and they were relocated out of there. And I think it's a place where human beings can probably learn how to be caretakers and protect the natural world and grow up finally.
Thank you.
It's been said that without trees, humans could not breathe. This is an oversimplification. The conditions for breath are made possible through the community of a forest, not by trees alone. A forest without lichen, mushroom, deer, grizzly, river, wolf, mosquito is not a forest. It's a slash pile. Life is never the product of isolated things. Life is the outcome of relationships and connections made between. Forests are an embodiment of this truth. So when a forest community is threatened, they require humans as diverse and expansive as themselves to ensure that protection. In October of 2021, my friend Strong Buffalo and I drove from St. Paul, Minnesota to the Yaak Valley to sing songs and read poems to members of this ancient forest community that is threatened. A concert for the trees. We trusted that by working at the pace of poetry and song, we could honor the life within this forest and help connect, diversify, and expand awareness to establish the human community needed to help protect these ancient trees. Before we start the concert, I'll leave the last words to Buffalo.
Pray for end to war and healing for the earth, and that we stay strong, accepting, bending, loving. I want a world that will live, that will give me and you a world that will live. I want a family with you and me, a family of me and the trees, and a world that will give me and the trees a life, so we can live as family. Us, trees and leaves. Under the darkened pandemic sun, as wildfires are burning us, and the sparks of social justice are ablaze. We shake, we fall, we wither, and we cry. But with our relatives, the air, the water, the land, the trees, we should learn to love ourselves, being ourselves. And we should share with each other, for our seeds are good, our roots are deep, our limbs are strong. because we are the glorious and beautiful trees and leaves standing up for what is right. Us, trees and leaves.
All the hills looked like different kinds of fur in the morning. Dirty wool, torn clouds blowing through the chinks in my day. Neck deep in the brambles, holding pieces of the beast to bring the dogs to the river where the sea used to be. Radishes and butter, salts and animal fat. There's birds in the hedges, whether they are singing or not. Half-clawed moon, held up by a herd of horns. Rain in the windowsills, leaves trading places in the wind outside the door. And these are my rambling bones, what I collect beneath the sky of trout throats, a flow of beaten earth and an old buffalo. These are my rambling bones, I go wherever they go. And I was whistling out the wild lines, far from a beaten path, out there looking for the last blank space on the map. Freckles on their shoulders like burrs on a deer. Ain't nothing they won't tell you after 2 sips of beer. A landscape of backbones knit golden with larch. Its forest is a circle of fire and rot. The waves cough up their teeth over the bow of my canoe, and I ride my bike everywhere. This burning dinosaur bones makes me blue. And these are my rambling bones. Under the stars, they fly up like crows, and deep in the lake, pass on as folklore. Can't hide nothing from my rambling bones. And there was a confluence of howls in the trampled bluegill sky. I'll be there in the morning, 'cause I've been here all night. Pine cones and coffee, blankets all rocked up, sleeping like a bug up in the undercut. While the clouds come and go, there's always been stars. Deep in the bear's belly, love is brightest in the dark. We ain't the only ones drifting out here hunting ourselves, hanging our hearts up in the trees, 'cause they don't belong nowhere else. And these are my rambling bones. They smell like split wood and ragged ass joy. Through the wind, timber straight down the back of my throat. You never catch me or my rambling bones. Loving water.
Get the lovin' from the skies, drop by drop, day by day, mind, body, and spirit, Purify, purify it all. May the loving water be full of love. Drop by drop, day by day. Mind, body, and spirit. Multiply, multiply it all. Everything is in the water is in everything. It's all in the water. Make water good. Make water have a long life. Make water sacred. Get the loving from the skies, drop by drop, day by day. May the living water be full of love, drop by drop, day by day. Purify, purify it all. Oh, wash day, mini. Oh, wash day, mini. May you love the water, and may the loving waters love you. May you love the water, and the water will love you.
Once Buffalo said, "Because we are not changing, the climate is." When he spoke, I heard feathers brush against bells. Spiraled shells turn in the sloshing waves, breaking around my ankles, so small upon the earth. Despite inherited and standardized norms that insist the world is made up of facts rather than metamorphoses, I know that I do not exist in isolation from any other intelligence or form of life in the universe. Our routines can be containers for our healing, or our routines can be containers for our wounding. Within the integrity of a braid, I wrap my visions for the world I imagine possible. I twist them in with what is. I know that trees exhibit the kind of love that the arrogance of reason has separated us from. So I keep seeds in my hands to remember the role of personal healing in collective healing. So that I don't forget diversity is its own form of resilience, and a refusal is also an affirmation. When in doubt, I imitate nature. I pray that we can become comfortable without taking and learn to be soothed by giving, to approach the dissonance with possibility rather than limitation. I'll never forget, last time I saw Buffalo, he was singing, "If you are proud of who you are, you should be out here with me, dancing in the circle of life."
ended before. 4 times it has died, from fire, floods, cold and dry. The fourth world was to have lasted forever, forevermore. We are now all standing in the last leg of the buffalo because we have all gone too far. And we need to talk about it all and make the changes required to correct it. The only thing different in this world now is that we are in it. The only thing different in this world now is that we are in it. So make your life last longer. Make your spirit stronger, because directions change. And please, stand tall with Mother Earth, child. Please, stand tall with Mother Earth, child.
Light your fire by the river, sleep on the ground. Ramble, 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 it's the only way back home. See the crows come and tell your story to the smoke. What can't hold itself up on the land, I say, let it go. Great-grandma, she hit a lightning bolt, no workbench faces wood. Said there's a hole in the bucket now, you hear, go fix it good. Mr. Chestnut wrapped some berries up in a torn piece of screen. She buried them under the porch so we wouldn't lose the seeds. 'Cause we all live downstream. We all live down. Well, I'll ride out in the morning with enough food for a couple days. Whatever I need after that, I'll just find along the way. Tell old hawk-eyed nephew there were dingo in my dreams, and a coyote on the roadside putting his eyes up in a tree. I followed the sound of water like wind through bullet holes till I came across an old grizzly, so running out of room to roam. Let me tell you a story, I will draw it with my knife. We ain't the only ones on this land trying to survive. 'Cause we all live downstream. We all live down. I come to believe the harvest depends on what you plant. But after we go by, the birds will settle on the branch. Whatever's in your heart is gonna show up in your eyes. There's no such thing as time, it's just wind and ice. Great-grandma, she always said leave extra tracks like a fox and go through this life like water around a rock. I see old hawk-eyed nephew with Sister Chestnut in the mud. Let's go quietly to the woods, give the river some room to flood. 'Cause we all live downstream. We all live down.
feel like a large tree. The invisible, walking around the world. Those talking with no one listening. As guns and brains are holding us down, where no one can see our slow death happening so fast. Born breathing like the wind, we exist, touch and gone unseen. Invisible, that has survived daily, that has turned into centuries. This world was given to us to share, but we are the invisible, walking around the world. Those talking with no one listening, as guns and brains are holding us down, where no one can see our slow death happening so fast. Born breathing like the wind, touch and gone unseen. We exist, invisible. Hey, 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 If you're proud, if you're proud of who you are, you should be out here. You should be out here with us, dancing around in the circle of life. Hey, hey. Hey, 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 May you stand with these trees. May you learn to love them as they love us. Hey, 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 hey. Hey, hey,
If you're proud of who you are, you should be out here dancing around with the trees in this circle of life. Hey, hey, hey,
Speechless. Thank you, Amy, Ashley, Marina, Ben, and Strong Buffalo. I'm reminded by the hair on my neck standing up right now that we are animals and the trees are trees. And it's such an honor to be in this relationship of fighting to save this ancient forest. My name is Rick Bass. For accessibility issues, I'll describe myself. I want to read a poem that reminds me of my description that I've been trying to figure out for myself by Jim Harrison, a great late poet. It's from a poem called Sketch for a Job Application Blank. My left eye is blind and jogs like a milky sparrow in its socket. My nose is large and never flares in anger. The front teeth bucked, but not in lechery. I sucked my thumb until the age of 12. Oh, my youth was happy, and I was never lonely, though my friends called me pig eye and the teachers thought me loony. That's the way to describe oneself. I'm wearing I'm colorblind as well as tone deaf. I don't know what color the cap is I'm wearing, kind of non-color with a red Fountain Valley School insignia, natural resources school in Colorado. I'd wear my Yaak Valley Forest Council cap, but it's not suitable for public. It's pretty salt stained and nasty. Long nose, big nose, blue eyes that a lot of bloodshot going on in them from smoke, wood fires this morning. Gray stubble. Oh yeah, hair. I always tell my writing students hair is not character, but I'm starting to worry that maybe it is. Anyway, I'm mostly bald, wearing a cap. Enough about me. We're here for this incredibly old forest, the guardian of so much, and the the sponge, the source for all of our water in the valley. It's where water first comes out of Canada into the Yaak Valley. There are three things that you can do to help protect this old forest: to stop black ram, the proposed timber sale, proposed regeneration harvest, an effective clear cut of nearly 1,000 acres. You can tweet Randy Moore, the Chief of the Forest Service, and we'll have the tweet handles or whatever they're called on the screen. It's pretty easy for you to do, and it's such a powerful step. You can also send a tweet to the Council on Environmental Quality, who has a big say in advising the Biden administration on environmental policies, particularly with regard to climate change. And you can also send a tweet thanking Representative Shelley Pingree of Maine, which has an incredible climate justice community and is working hard to champion the protection of old and mature forest on our public lands, on your public lands. She's been a champ, and courage and leadership in government should be thanked. So there are three very simple, powerful steps. A little bit about our strange coalition. Listening to Buffalo's poetry, our roots are deep, our limbs are strong. I was reminded of the disparate quality of our coalition, for lack of a better word. The Disability United community, led by Marina in honor of her friend Alexandra, has been very powerful and enduring, ceaseless. We're grateful for their help. The NFL Players Union, strangely enough, is supporting us. The international music community, musicians from all around the world, are supporting this, and more on that later in my comments. Poets and writers are supporting us. I love, Ben, your line of poetry, of us working at the pace of poetry and song, and we'll talk about that international music community in a bit. Indigenous people in Maine, Passamaquoddy and Penobscot, and Indigenous activists in Minnesota along the northern tier are supporting this act of climate justice. And we certainly mean to speak for no Indigenous group in the territory that we're working to defend, the Confederated Salish Kootenai tribe and the Kootenai tribe of Idaho. Their past and present is honored, and their future. So it's a wide coalition and growing. There's no trick to why it's spreading so far and deep and wide. All we ever have to say is three words: this old forest, and then we try and explain it, and we don't have the words. You've seen the pictures, you've heard the song, but really that phrase, this old forest, comma, and people are just drawn to it. They want, I think, a place of shelter. They want a place of stability. They want a place of power. They want a place of diversity. They want a place of beauty. They want a place of mystery. In Marina's words, so intensely observed, yet completely mysterious. The forest, as we've seen in these images, is water, crashing, rippling, pooling in ponds, seeping. When you walk through this forest, it's such a physical act. You go very slow, you slow down, time slows down. You don't want to damage anything with your feet. It's so soft. It's comprised of, we don't know what it's comprised of down there. You can see the ghost outlines of the forest giants fallen one on top of another, on top of another, on top of another in these dizzying geometries. There's, the description of Earth Island, of Turtle Island, of the Earth as being turtles all the way down. Well, I think the Yaak is forest giants all the way down. And some of these trees, subalpine fir, 315-year-old spruce, the 600 to 800-year-old larch, yew, alder, cottonwood, aspen, it's everything that's in the Yaak is in there. And some of them get so big in this spongy, squishy, mossy, high altitude swamp that you could almost push them over, which would be quite a rude thing to do indeed. There's incredible senescence in there. I think that's the amazing thing to me about the forest is the way death of a tree, or what we think of as death, is really just when things really get rocking as far as life. The cavity nesting and the colors of the decomposition, the nurse logs, nurse trees. There is no screen or veil between living and dying in there, and it's a special place that we should study. The forest is never burned that we can find, or much of it that we can find evidence of. How has it protected itself against the West's chronic and increasing wildfires? It's something that we would do well to study. I want to talk a little bit about music and poetry. Before I do, I feel like a telethon host. It seems so strange that a tweet can save a forest, but it can. So please tweet to the Forest Service, Chief Randy Moore. Please tweet to Council on Environmental Quality. And, please, let's mind our manners and say thank you to Representative Pingree. doing the right thing for our public lands and for ourselves, for this jackpot we've got ourselves into called climate change. The forest has been explained to us by the forester Herb Hammond of the Silva Foundation as existing by gap creation. It's this incredibly seemingly random and yet sophisticated and complicated lying down of trees. When one tree crashes down through the overstory, through the canopy, it brings a slash of light into this very rich alpine swamp, and the new life leaps up into those slashes of light. And then those trees grow big and old, and then they lean over in one direction or another, bringing another slash of light, and so on and so forth for 1,000 years, whatever, however long it's been going. And you feel that when you're in there, when you're walking through those bands of light and shadow. And to me, it falls across your body, and it feels like the way Ben's delicate banjo and guitar strokes, keys, chords were resonating in the film today. You can't hear it, but you can feel it. The light waves are like sound waves. A neurological wonder about the human body is that we don't process sound. We don't use that sense and send it through the brain and repackage it and microprocess it in the brain. It just is waves that come into us and exist in us unfiltered, unprocessed. And I think that's why it's so powerful. And there's this incredible luthier, used to work for Gibson Guitars, Kevin Kopp, and he has been making spruce top guitars that have incredibly bright, hot, beautiful, rich sound from old spruce trees when he can find one blown down along a road in the Yaak. And he's making one for Black Ram that musicians around the country and around the world are volunteering to play a song of the resistance on. And so as part of our program today, we'd like you guys to send in, in the Q&A business, send in musicians who you would like to hear play this guitar when Kevin finishes it, which will be this year. And maybe even what song you would like to hear them play on it. We'll prepare a wish list. And we haven't had everyone we've reached out to thus far has said, yes, heck yes, we'll love to play a song on this guitar. I'm going on long. I want to turn it over to the audience for questions and answers. And again, thank not just the people on screen in this event today, but Ashley, again, your comment so strong about keeping water on site. That's this. There are many aspects to stopping black ram, but it begins with water, and that's why the forest is there, and we want to keep the forest there to keep the water there. Ben Palmer, thanks for putting this together. Greg Cairns filming, and Brian Christensen photographing. There's no end to the amount of work it took to get this for y'all. Yeah, but let's look at some questions. Or musician recommendations. I'm trying to scan the private chat to see what's up. Here's one. How many grizzly bears are left in the Yaak? That's nobody knows. There's so much about the Yaak that it's not known, and that's one of the benefits of a climate refuge. It would be a place to direct scientific inquiry and a place to direct artists as well to see how they respond to what's called a primary forest, one that's never been logged, never burned. It's a place to study, not erase, to the aridification lunar moonscape of a regen harvest and clear cut. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, their 10-year rolling average shows 3 mother bears, 3 adult females with cubs in the Yaak. Approximately 25 bears total. But yeah, 3 is not a very, very big number. It's kind of Noah's Ark-ish. There isn't much grizzly activity in the Black Ram area right now. It's a super mature old forest, but it serves a great need of providing thermal cover, both in the cold weather before they go into hibernation, but also in the summer when it gets so hot. Something to think about the needs of large animals in these northern climes is where would you go if you were wearing a 70-pound fur coat? And as the temperatures get higher and higher each summer, becomes a real stressor on the giants, on the megafauna. So yeah, cool question. A little bit about um, Kopp guitars. You can Google it. See, it's koppguitars.com, I think. Kopp. Leo Kottke is a big devotee of his uh, guitars. The folk musician James McMurtry is, one of the best writers of resistance song. Working today is going to support us. Check out his "You Can't Make It Here Anymore" song if you're not familiar with it, and imagine it being played on such an instrument. Yeah, I'm going to send a note to our compatriots. Yeah, Ashley, I jotted down what you said in staff meeting the other day. We want our water to stay on site. Uh, I've got a poem to share with you all. Got a couple poems. Poems should be read, not written. The world has enough bad poetry, but everybody should be reading it every day in these times. I think, Amy, your comment to begin the event, "Stop Black Ram." Let's say it again, "Stop Black Ram." Reminded me of the compression, the power that compression can have. 3 words can be beautiful and powerful. The poem that I think helps drive this movement is by W.S. Merwin. It's called "Witness." I want to tell what the forest were like. I will have to speak in a forgotten language, and that's what this is. It is the language of song and poetry. We certainly have the language of science and carbon absorption, carbon dioxide absorption, carbon sequestering. These old forests are 30 to 70% more effective at holding carbon than the drier site pines. It's the most economical and efficient way to mitigate climate change. The large green movements, Center for Biological Diversity, Earth Justice, Sierra Club, so forth, are sending petitions to the Council on Environmental Quality and to the Biden administration asking that our nation's, the old and mature forest on our public lands be protected for that reason. And it seems like a really simple solution. They're not saying don't thin forest around communities, don't cut trees on public land. They're just saying protect, honor the ancient and old ones that will protect us. And sometimes the thing, I don't know, maybe it makes too much sense for politicians that maybe they get nervous or think it's a trap or something. This isn't a trap. This is a way out. Ben, I have a question for you and Strong Buffalo. Thank you for coming all the way from Minnesota repeatedly to. Can you give us your impressions when you went up the Davis Fire Line, that is the entry point, the access to the proposed Black Ram sale?
Should I go first?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess the first time I went up there was when you told me about it, and I rode my bike up there, and I was singing a song to myself just so that the bears would know I was around. And when I got up to the part, well, like, where the first sort of landing was, and then went behind the gate and started going down, I just felt this unbelievably overwhelming sense of infringement because of the Davis fire break and because of all this removal that had already happened. And that was really like my first interaction with that place. And I rode right up to the border. And honestly, it was
kind of a creepy feeling. And then I ditched my bike and walked into the forest quite a ways to find some of those old trees. And then everything changed. And when I walked out, again, it was the same thing. You had a word for it when we went in one time. I forget, where this sort of the dryness along the edge, and then you walk into the forest and it starts to you can literally, it's almost like you're shading with a crayon. You can see the life returning the further you get away from that fire break. And then Marina and I spoke one time after we'd both been in there, and Marina pointed out the fact that we forget that infringement is everywhere, and that these these spaces, these natural spaces and bodies and water, though they may appear pristine and beautiful, you don't have to look, as you can see from that drone footage, like you don't have to look very far before you see the impact of the infringement. And the irony that these 800-year-old larch trees are still living and thriving despite that infringement, to me, that's where the magic comes in. So in a way, experiencing the fire break first and witnessing what this place could look like if we don't take care of it, juxtaposed with, as I said in the little intro, like the dew hanging off the needles at 3:00 in the afternoon still. I mean, that's the definition of, I think, everything that we're desperately trying to retain as human beings, so that we can I just heard this term today, re-ember our relationship as human beings, to the natural world.
Thank you.
Yeah, I thought of, I was stunned. I've never been to a place like the Yaak before. And it's just this, for me, that particular area was just intense contradiction. It's just this immense clashing of forces of the violence done to the land, and then the resilience of the land, and how they come together within such a small defined, it's a relatively small area, but such a complex area. And I just recently had the thought how just writing that memorial for Alexandra, I kind of, for the first time, really deeply realized what it means for me as somebody whose ancestors did not go back to this land, that I am young to this land. The land does not know me. And so our encounter is takes place, but it's a different set of terms, because it's quite literally, my roots do not go that deep. And it's such a small realization, but it's so but it holds the universe of the settler colonial violence that we're all living within. So yeah, it's quite an enchanted, difficult place.
Thank you, Marina. Strong Buffalo, I heard the phrase colonial violence. Can we have your impressions of being in that forest and performing a concert in it?
Yeah, it was beautiful. I always say it was our best audience. But when I walked up there, I realized that fire break was so dry, and it's just a road. It's just another trick that profiteers are doing to the earth. They're just making a way in so they can cut more trees and do more damage and just overmanage everything. And it's just like us human beings have to learn how to live with the rest of the world. We're the ones that are out of line. And so it's like, I'm glad there's some other human beings that are starting to stand up and speak out about it. I think it was one of the most beautiful places I've been in the past few years. And I didn't realize we were sitting there just a couple miles or less than a mile away from the border, and that Canada's going crazy with cutting the wood. And, it's just, why can't we human beings grow up and learn how to coexist? And it's just a senseless situation, and the difference between the forest and the pathway up there, it was like so dry. And then we got into the forest, it was so wet. And I think that difference between life and death, it's just a fine line.
Thank you. Hearing you speak is reminding me of what it was like to be in there, hearing you guys sing and play, and to be in there with you, Marina. Taking the care and time, months on end, beginning the puppet in New York, ferrying it across the country, having volunteers assemble it along the way, carrying it up that fire line that Ben and Strong Buffalo are describing, that arid scar to the edge of the old forest, and then hanging it in there for less than a day, and then disassembling it and walking back out as if nothing had ever happened or existed. Thank y'all for bringing your art to the Black Ram Project. A question from Tim Stevens: where's the Forest Service at with the timber sale, draft, final, etc.? Also, are you finding allies within the national conservation community? A final environmental assessment has been released that proposes these regen harvest up there in these clear cuts up in Midge Creek nearby, and up on Garver also nearby. Everything's connected up there in that corner. A final record of decision has not been signed. The Yaak Valley Forest Council advocated for an environmental impact statement, but the previous administration had discouraged strongly the Forest Service doing environmental impact statements anymore. So it's just kind of this lightweight environmental assessment with a lot of. This event is not about dissing the Forest Service. We just need to stop the sale. But it's in limbo right now, and for good reason. Also, are you finding allies within the national conservation community? We are. We're humbled by anyone who hears this story. I mean, Patagonia is transfixed by it. So many national groups. Our Center for Biology. Yeah, we're getting a lot of help. And what's most touching is help from places where we had not previously ever expected or even thought to wish for it. It's coming to the forest. It's quite humbling. We've kept you all a long time. Please take those 3 steps. Tweet the Forest Service. Please tweet the Council on Environmental Quality, and urge them to consider a climate refuge for studying such incredible data banks that we don't know the first thing about. We're not the only ones proposing this. I mean, there's a movement along the northern tier in Minnesota and in Maine's North Woods through Michael and Alyssa O'Brien, in Vermont's Northeast Kingdom, in the Adirondacks, in the Upper Peninsula, Boundary Waters, the Cascades, the Tongass, over in Europe and Asia, the circumpolar forest, this ring of feathery, frilled, green fringed lungs that absorb the carbon dioxide that our living creates. It can still be some semblance of balance if we act right now. Thanks for asking for that, Robin. Gratitude to Robin for and Scott Daly before her for helping this little group get to be in a position of where we need to be at the time when we need to be there. I want to close with what, Marina? Oh fuck, I'm muted.
We had a question. We had one more question.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
We've been peeking.
I'm so eager to read this poem and get out of here. I'm teasing. If you can find it, we can answer it.
It was answered in the comments then, so there you go.
Thank you again, Amy, Ashley, Marina, Ben, Strong Buffalo. Y'all have worked on this for the better part of a year for 1 hour of light and song and poetry. No work is wasted. It's thank you. It's quite beautiful. The poem is by our beloved Mary Oliver. It's one many of you will recognize. It's one that I was not too proud to bribe my children into memorizing when they were young, so that it would embed its logic and values in their souls. Called The Wild Geese. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over announcing your place in the family of things. Thank you for listening. We'll have this up on YouTube in about a week. We're going to take a little break and we'll get it up there. And please share it, and please take those 3 steps: Forest Service, CEQ, and thank Representative Pingree. Thank you all.